Hey guys, in this guide I will cover everything about Flurry Rogue that I have learned so far and share with you my recent findings. So let's start with the discussion. Why should you play Flurry Rogue in Season 5? So when people rated this build with tier lists, let's say, many people put Flurry into B tier, maybe even C tier. Rob did not even mention it in his tier list, I believe. But when I theory crafted it a few weeks ago, I was already convinced that it's more powerful than people believe. And it seems that this is kind of true. So Flurry Rogue for me is at least A tier, but maybe even S tier compared to other classes. So this depends on your definition, of course. For me, Andariel's Rogue, for example, is something like S plus tier because it's just cracked and very overpowered. And Flurry Rogue for me is a typical S tier build, so we can clear and speed farm this tier 7 Infernal Hordes pretty easily, as you can see here. So yeah, Flurry Rogue somewhere between A and S tier, very powerful build. And also it's kind of a new build, so we used to play with distant range style rogue builds in the last seasons. So this was the rogue meta. We had Heartseeker, Rapid Fire, Penetrating Shot, and melee builds were kind of not represented very well. But yeah, this season this changes and we can play this very tanky melee build. So we're also playing with the new reworked Momentum Key passive. So it got much better in Season 5, and this also basically allows us to play this melee style rogue build. And for me at least, personally, it is a lot of fun to play such a build. We also have a huge AoE potential, so Flurry is obviously an AoE skill, and it used to be one of the weakest skills in the rogue setup, but now it just got buffed very powerful, in a very powerful way, so it's just a lot of fun to play with this AoE Flurry style right now. And the weaknesses of this build, well, you need some items in order to make it work in the end game. So especially you will need the Starless Skies unique ring. For me, if you ask me personally, I don't think it's too difficult to farm mythic uniques in Season 5 anymore, because they have buffed the tormented bosses, for example. So now every boss like Lord Zir, Varshan, Grégoire, they all have the same chance of dropping a Uber unique, and have a chance of about 7.5% after each run. So I think it's pretty easy to farm Uber uniques in Season 5. And yeah, like I mentioned, you need the Starless Skies ring in the end game in order to also achieve this high damage numbers and also to make it basically work in the end game. And another disadvantage of this build is the staggering here. So you want to stagger bosses for to get them into staggering mode and deal more damage because they're crowd controlled. And this is a little bit more annoying than it used to be with, let's say, Heartseeker last season, because we just could accumulate tons of different CC effects on our gear. But with Flurry Rogue this is not possible because we need some space for some other tempering recipes, let's say. So staggering is a little bit slower than we were usually familiar with it. But I would say these are the only weaknesses, and it's an overall very powerful build. And if we talk about a playstyle a bit, so we have many different versions with Flurry Rogue right now. So here we are focusing on the cold imbuement Flurry in this video. But there are also some people like Luna who are playing with pure Flurry, so just without any imbuements, just dealing physical damage. I will also maybe experiment with that after I have perfected my cold imbuement Flurry Rogue here. But yeah, it's for me it's difficult to say right now which version is better. For me this version also works very well. And yeah, but there are many different versions. And also within this cold imbuement version, there are also many different versions. So for example, in the gameplay here, you can see me with Scoundrel's Leather. So this is a unique chestplate for Rogue, which basically allows you to spam caltrops, death traps, and poison traps. So that's why you see a lot of traps in this gameplay here. So every time I'm in my inner sight duration, I'm casting this random traps, and this is kind of fun. So I just experimented a little bit with this playstyle. But you have many different options, and all of them are in my planner on Mobalytics, so you can decide for the version you prefer the most. And they are also kind of similar, and yeah, just have some slight advantages and disadvantages if you compare them. But one of my recent discovery and kind of innovation, let's say, in this Cold Flurry setup is a new unique that I'm using, which is called Jens Blessing. So Jens Blessing are some unique boots, and they were basically never played in the seasons before. And what these boots are doing is you have a chance up to 60% while casting your core skill to reset a skill on your active skill bar, which is on cooldown. And mobility and ultimate skills are not counted in. So you can spam your Shadow Step, you can spam your Dash, your Caltrops, and this way we can always reset our Cold Imbuement skill. So maybe you have noticed it already. My Cold Imbuement charges are recharging itself from time to time, even if I'm not activating my Cold Imbuement, if I'm not casting it. So this is coming from the Jens Blessing boots that I will show you later, of course, in the gear section. And this was kind of a game changer for me, because this allows me to maintain my Cold Imbuement much longer and just benefit from the several multipliers, damage multipliers that are connected with this Cold Imbuement skill. So yeah, this is pretty cool. But for that reason, we are not playing with Smoke Grenade, because Smoke Grenade would also trigger the Jens Blessing boots and would recast itself instead of the Cold Imbuement. And instead we are playing with Heartseeker here. This is not mandatory, it's just you can increase your attack speed for 4 seconds. It's not huge, but from time to time you can use it also during the boss fight. But in fact, you're just spamming your mobility skills and your flurry and of course your Cold Imbuement. And the key for this setup here is managing your Cold Imbuement cooldown, basically. So you just have to have an overview about your charges, your Cold Imbuement charges. So you just press the button, you just cast your Cold Imbuement once you need it to cast. So just because the charges are recharging themselves with Jens Blessing. So if you manage to do this in a very efficient way, then well, this build will be very good for you and you will have endless Cold Imbuement casts. So now I can maybe skip this gameplay a little bit, and before we go to the gear section, I can quickly show you this boss fight here. So tier 7 is not a problem, like I mentioned, and the boss fight is also pretty decent. Of course, since we are dealing AoE damage with Flurry, it would be nice to attack multiple council members at once, but I have not found out a way yet where you can guarantee them stacking together. So from time to time what happens is that you just have to fight one by one. It will take, of course, a longer time, but yeah, for now I don't have any tips how you can increase your chance of getting them stuck together. So yeah, this is why I'm just attacking here this single council member, and you can see the damage numbers are quite huge. So I'm hitting for more than 100 million per flurry hit sometimes. If all of my damage multipliers are ready, then the damage numbers are pretty crazy. And this is not even the best gear, let's say. I still have a lot of room for improvement, so I think I can boost my damage by another at least 30%, maybe even more, if I find some very decent amulet and also masterwork a little bit better on my weapons. So yeah, still a lot of potential in my opinion. But like you can see, the boss fight is not a problem. And yeah, you can just kill it quite fast. I think this was a 1.5 minute clear, and I had to attack all of them separately. If they were stacked together, then it would be much more fast, of course. And here the last boss just dies in a few seconds. And then we will cover the requirements, so the key items for this build, so what you basically need in order to start playing this build. And by the way, I also want to mention tier 8 is also not a problem for this build. I also have I also have some gameplay for tier 8, but it would take too long, so I can just show you some quick impression here. So at this point I was lacking some survivability with my gear, so this was not optimal, but the damage is not a problem, so the waves itself are pretty manageable in tier 8. And at this point of the game I had worse gear than I have now. So, but the main problem is the boss fight. It just takes too long on tier 8, so I just need some better gear, and then I think tier 8 is also not a problem, and this is what makes this build S tier build for me. So Flurry Rogue, very powerful, also manageable to do tier 8 at some point in the game. So now I want to talk about the key items. So what are your requirements? So to basically start playing this build, all you need are the 2 flurry aspects. So you have bandits and encircling blades. You also want Stolen Vigor, since this will also boost your damage by up to 68% if you put it on an amulet. And also, of course, you want your Ambrose aspect. So Ambrose, many people ask this question in the comments very often. How do I proc my how do I activate my Dark Shroud without having it on my active skill bar? So for that reason we just play with Ambrose, because now we have a chance of 60% to get a free Dark Shroud shadow every time we critical strike. So yeah, Ambrose is very important for basically every rogue build right now. This is what keeps us alive in the difficult end game. And like I mentioned, these 3 aspects are just enough to, I think, yeah, start with this build and get familiar with it. And later, like I mentioned, you want to have a Ring of Starless Skies. So this is mandatory in order to play with Crown of Lucion. I have also made a video about Crown of Lucion where I talk about nerfs about that this item has received. So for many people, this item was dead in Season 5. But I have done some calculation, some math, and I have figured out, well, it's not that. You can still make it work. You just need some adjustments in your build. And I can, in fact, show you a small graphic here. So here you can see we have basically 6. So this is the important part here. We are spending 36 energy per second. And we are gaining about 16.5 energy per second. So this way we lose 20 energy per second. But because we have 130 energy with momentum, this would take us 6.4 seconds until we drop to 0 energy. So this is the math behind it basically. And for that reason, if we are playing with Inner Sight, we are making sure that we can spam our flurry all the time. And we never run out of energy because our Inner Sight just comes back just in time, and we can spam flurry, keep spamming flurry. So Crown of Lucion, very powerful, but in order to play with it you need the Ring of Starless Skies, so this is mandatory in the end game. And also you need one greater affix roll of resource cost reduction on your 2-hander. And Ring of Starless Skies with this greater affix is just enough to maintain the energy flow, just like I showed you now. So yeah, this is the main requirement. And for the gameplay I've shown you, so for the Infernal Hordes mode, Jens Blessing is also a requirement. So this is the unique boots I was talking about. You have a 60% chance to cast a non-mobility, non-ultimate skill that is on cooldown. And this is what makes you recast your cold imbuement so often. So you can see here my cold imbuement is on a cooldown. And now I just get some free charges and can spam my cold imbuement. And this way I have basically double the amount of cold imbuement and can just spam it throughout the entire run. And this is what makes this build very fun and was kind of the game changer for me, still playing with cold imbuement. Okay, so to quickly mention some alternative gear here. So if you do not have a Crown of Lucion and Ring of Starless Skies yet, you can just play with a regular helm and a regular ring. So just copy the same affixes as the other ring, let's say, and put on some decent offensive aspect. You have many different aspects. You have the conceited aspect, for example, also frostbitten for more damage versus stunned and frozen enemies. We also have cold clip. for more damage versus shield enemies. So you have enough of room for offensive aspects on your ring slots and also on your helmet. You can just switch the concussive strikes on your helmet and just put another offensive aspect on your gloves, let's say. So you have some alternatives here, it's not too important. And for Jens Blessing, you can just use something like this here, some boots with energy per second to even maintain you more energy if you are lacking a greater affix, for example, for resource cost reduction. And yeah, so nothing too crazy here, but for the end game, highly recommend you to get this unique items here. Okay, now how do we reach our armor and resistance caps here? So in this setup, it's pretty easy because Jens Blessing has a lot of resistances to all elements, similar to Material Smite. We just need to have 1 diamond on our jewelry, and then we are basically resistance capped. And for armor, we can put 2 skulls into our jewelry, and then we only need 1 armor roll on some piece of gear. So for example, on our chest plate or on our pants. So my chest plate, I even have a greater affix roll for my armor, but it's not required to have a greater affix roll just because of these 2 skulls here. 1 regular roll is just enough, and then you are armor capped and resistance capped. So it's very easy with this build. Don't worry about that. Now I can also cover the most important affixes and temperings. So maybe I can also show you this here first. So we have a little bit of lucky hit chance from our helm and from our ring. So Starless Skies and Crown of Lucian gives us some additional lucky hit chance. But lucky hit chance is not too important in this build. We do not scale our damage with lucky hit chance. So yeah, it's whatever. Attack speed, you want to have attack speed on your gloves and on both of your rings. So Starless Skies comes with attack speed, and then you want a greater affix on both of your rings and your gloves in the best case, because then you will reach this 60.4 attack speed, and this will help you to reach the highest possible attack speed breakpoint. So where you are casting, I think, about 2.3 flurries per second. So yeah, that's the reason behind that. And critical strike chance, you can see we are reaching even more than 100% in this version. So we have some from the Paragon and stats, we have some bonus from dash. Trick attacks gives us 36%, Caltrops gives us 20%, we have at least 18% from the Ring of Starless Skies, and we also have Inner Sight, which gives us 25%. So overall, it's pretty easy to reach about 100% or even more. During the boss fight, we will not have access to trick attacks because we need some mobs, some regular mobs to proc this passive. So for that reason, I'm playing with this enhanced Caltrops, which gives me more critical strike chance, because I just want to reach as much as possible during the boss fight as well, where we do not have access to trick attacks. But you can see crit chance not a big deal here, and so for that reason it's also not too important to get some additional critical strike chance on our gear. So the best affixes are, in fact, for offensive gear we have ranks to Flurry, and also on the Starless Skies ring we have this core skill ranks. So all of them goes into Flurry and increases our damage. Right now I have 40 ranks, the more ranks the better. Then we have attack speed, like I mentioned, on gloves and ring. And you want ranks to passives on your amulet. So here I only have +3 to Frigid Finesse. You also want Weapon Mastery, Exploit, Malice, or something like Trick Attacks. So just basically get as many passive skill ranks as possible on your amulet. And this will also boost your damage in a very significant way. And of course, on your chestplate, you want Dark Shroud ranks. If you're not playing the version with Scoundrel's Leather, which I can also show you in a second, you want Dark Shroud ranks. So +5 to Dark Shroud is basically similar to about 18 or 19% damage reduction. So yeah, this is pretty huge. This is what basically keeps you alive in the higher tiers, higher pit tiers and Infernal Horde tiers. And I would say these are your most important affixes. And regarding tempering, your most important tempering for offensive scaling, for damage scaling, is this damage per dark short shadow. So this is what basically enables this build to even function and deal that big amount of damage. So on every weapon, gloves and rings and amulet, you want damage per dark short shadow. And just because we have 5 shadows active all the time basically, and this gives us a huge amount of additive damage, and this is what scales our damage in the end game. So you can also see here my attack power, which is usually not too important. You should never look at your attack power, but from time to time I'm reaching more than 1 million attack power, and this is just because of ranks to Dark Shroud. So right now it's not going up. I don't know why. Because I don't have my Scoundrel's leather. Okay, anyways, but very important. Then you have flurry size. Flurry size, just very cool. It increases your flurry size and makes it more easy to AoE clear everything in the arena mode. So I can highly recommend that. Also, cold charges are very important tempers. So you see that I have 9 cold immune charges, and this can go up to more than 10 if you are really lucky. So I have some on my ring and on my amulet. So very important in order to maintain your cold immune. And last but not least, caltrop size and duration, also kind of important. Caltrop's duration not important as it used to be in Season 4, because the damage is now capped to 45%. So caltrops gives you up to 45% more damage, and it used to work in Season 4 in a way where it scaled with your duration to caltrops, but now it's got fixed if it was a bug. So yeah, it's not that important anymore, but still important, because during the Hordes you just want to attack as often as possible in your caltrops, because you will get some additional damage multipliers, and this will just boost your damage even further. So for that reason, also kind of important. And I think now I can also show you my mobalytics plan actually. So here I have different versions. I have leveling version, I have the endgame version without Jens Blessing. And right now I showed you this Infernal Hordes variant with Jens Blessing. And I will also add another version, I think. So recently I have experimented with Scoundrel's Leather. So this item is also very fun. While you have unlimited energy from inner sight, casting and core skill has a chance to spawn caltrops, poison trap or death trap. And this also has some very nice synergies with our build. So this way we can benefit from some additional multipliers from the Paragon board, like No Witness, because we cast Death Trap, which is an ultimate skill, and this will boost our damage. And it's also kind of fun to play. But the problem with Scoundrel's Leather is that you will have to also play with a Doombringer, in my opinion, because Scoundrel's Leather just gives up too much of defensive, of survivability basically. So in order to play with Scoundrel's Leather, I think you need to play with Doombringer, because this compensates this lack of survivability. So this is more of a niche version, and I'm not sure if it's playable without Doombringer at a higher tier, but it's also very fun. And I think I will also add this variant to the mobalytics planner. And this was the version that you basically saw in the gameplay. So I can quickly swap to it, but I think first I want to show you the skill tree. So just a small teaser here, but now we are still covering this Infernal Hordes variant here, and I first want to show you the skills, because then I have to reskill. So for the skill tree we have Enhanced Heartseeker. We can use it from time to time for this 4 seconds long bonus buff to attack speed. Then of course Advanced Flurry for more energy reduction and also more damage. We have Trick Attacks and Unstable Elixirs. This also boosts our damage after using a health potion. Very useful. Discipline caltrops for more critical strike chance during boss fights. So we are playing with Subverting Dark Shroud. I really like this for this additional heal effect. And you can of course also play with countering, but for me Subverting is just better for survivability. Here we have Second Wind. So this is our barrier generator, just because we're spamming so many flurries. We're also generating barriers from time to time. And of course momentum. So they have reworked this key passive. Now it also gives you some increased damage bonus. And it's just overall a very powerful key passive right now. And every melee rogue build should play it. Okay, and so now I can reskill a bit. Because for the Scoundrel's Leather version, we can do some stuff here. So we just remove everything here. We skill into countering Poison Trap, because this has a chance to reset our cold imbuement. And we are skilling here into Death Trap to pull in enemies. And now I can quickly show you this other version here. So here in this setup, I'm going full on the green gems here. So this way I can reach more than 2200 dexterity. Just because I have so much life from Doombringer, and if I proc my Elixir of Fortitude, I will go even up to 47k life, even though I don't have any rubies in my defensive gear here. So with this combination of Doombringer, Scoundrel's Leather, and his Elixir, I will still maintain a pretty high survivability. And then I can go full on damage and utility with Scoundrel's Leather. So this is what I can quickly show you. So during the boss fight, you also can start a fight with Caltrops. And now you can see I'm casting all of the traps here automatically. Poison Trap, Caltrops, Death Trap. And once I reach the staggering phase, you can see the damage goes up. Even 140 million hit. If you saw it also, yeah, this is pretty cool, and this is the Scoundrel's Leather build. But, like I mentioned, it requires a Doombringer, in my opinion, to, yeah, not die in the pit. But this is also a pretty fun build, and you saw the changes I made here. I have some second wind from pants here, so that's why I can just remove the skill points. And yeah, just have to invest some points into Death Trap and Poison Trap. And then this build also works very well. And for the Paragon, so this Paragon board is also optimized for the Scoundrel's Leather build. On Mobalytics, if you want to stick with my normal Infernal Hordes mode, just go to Paragon board on Mobalytics, if it will open. And then you can take a look at the Paragon board there. But here I can show you my Paragon board for the Scoundrel's Leather. So we have Canny Glyph in the starter board for more damage with non-physical. We have Closer Glyph for more survivability with Cheap Shot. Then we go here to this Cunning Stratagem board. This board is important for core skill damage. So here we get a bunch of core skill damage, and we need this in order to buff our Laerena's Instinct. So here we are getting another 32% multiplicative damage bonus while our inner sight Gorg becomes full, and especially with Scoundrel's Leather. So if I would also have rolled a greater affix on inner sight duration, I would have inner sight about 9 or even 10 seconds maybe. So you will have 10 seconds full of inner sight duration with this huge damage bonus here. So for that reason we need to acquire as much core skill damage bonus as possible. Then we have this No Witness board. So also because of Scoundrel's Leather, I'm casting my Death Trap from time to time. So this gives me additional 39% more damage for 10 seconds. Also some attack speed here. And here we have the Chip Glyph. And some more maximum life, which is nice. Here I have Eldritch Bounty. 20% more damage with Cold Imbuement basically. And the last one is Deadly Ambush. More damage versus trapped enemies. And here's some damage reduction and Ambush Glyph for more damage. So we have Fluidity, Ambush, Canny, Chip, and Closer. So also in fact we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 legendary nodes. This is pretty cool. Yeah, so we're basically getting all of the different damage multipliers that we can get, except for maybe Exploit Weakness, but this is not too good versus bosses anyways, because it's very slowly stacking up to this 25%. So yeah, it's pretty good anyways. Okay, so I have covered as many variants and options as I could so far. So like I mentioned, you can just check out my Mobalytics guide for all of these different versions. I don't know why this is lagging right now here, I'm sorry for that. But yeah, just check out my guide. And in the future, so I will maybe try a pure Flurry Rogue in the future. So once I have perfected my cold imbuement Flurry Rogue, and if I do not make any progress in the tier 8 speed farm or Infernal Hordes push speed farm, I will switch to pure Flurry and compare it to the cold imbuement version. So maybe pure Flurry is better in the end. I cannot say it for sure right now, but you saw that this version also works pretty decent. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this guide, and I see you in the next one. You can subscribe to this channel to not miss any videos. You can, of course, leave me a like. This would really support my channel here. And yeah, thank you for watching, guys. I see you in the next one. Have a nice day, and bye-bye.